Free agency takeaways for your Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's get it. So guys, Trent Baalke had a lot of work to do this free agency period. Last offseason, he really didn't do a whole lot because, look, the Jaguars are on top looking down at three different teams that were set to draft rookie quarterbacks. So he said, you know what? If our roster was good enough to win the AFC South this year, then next year should be a cakewalk because the division might even be easier. Well, not right now, man. If you actually look at this video and this channel's official sport book, BetUS, the Jaguars are not the favorite to win the AFC South. The Jaguars are at plus 200, while the Texans are at plus 150. Now, if you guys like the Jaguars' chances with these odds, look, BetUS is going to offer you a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits using promo code JOIN125. And real quick, let's get a quick word from this video sponsor, BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer, a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Supporting the sponsor really supports this channel, so huge thank you to BetUS for sponsoring not only this video, but also this channel. So with all that said, let's talk about Jaguars free agency. So like I said earlier, this free agency was very, very unpredictable for the Jaguars because a lot of people really didn't know what Baalke was going to do. And I think the main worry that Jaguars fans have is that we kind of know Trent Baalke to be a little bit hard-headed, okay? And when he was speaking to the media, I knew for myself it drove me nuts because I could tell he was kind of lying. So for that reason, it was driving me nuts. But I'm kind of glad that he was lying at the combine because, I mean, he made a bunch of moves to kind of help better the team and pretty much get some guys to kind of replace some of his bad selections out here. So really, with me, this free agency, my main goal was fortify the trenches, okay? The Jaguars on the offensive line and defensive line just were not good enough in 2023. So I wanted to get some more big men in there and help out that unit. So with the Jaguars, on the offensive line, you bring in center Mitch Morse. This was a big A-plus move before the free agency tampering period even began. I mean, you signed him to a cheap 2-year, $10 million deal, and, you know, you just look at him, and he is a man, okay? He is what you'd think a center would look like, and you know, Luke Fortner just straight up isn't. So I'm happy that we got a guy in there that, you know, feels like a tough man, is going to be able to, you know, really help the Jaguars out and protect Trevor Lawrence. And, you know, if you look at the run game analytics, the Jaguars run game was a lot better behind a guy like Mitch Morse. So that one is really, really exciting. And that's a move that I was very, very happy with. And also on the offensive line, on the interior, you signed Ezra Cleveland to a new deal, which Ezra Cleveland, you know, last year, it just stinks because he wasn't great last year, but he was also playing injured a lot of the games, okay? One game where he was a starting left guard, or I'm not sure. No, actually, he wound up going in there at left guard because Cam Robinson got hurt against the Texans. And, you know, he played some pretty good left guard, but he was a little bit hobbled with injury the rest of the year, and so was Brandon Sheriff, who the Jaguars restructured at right guard. So, you know, the interior of the offensive line, you're running it back with 2 of your guys. And, you know, with Ezra Cleveland and Brandon Sheriff, you just hope they stay healthy. You know, you just hope they stay healthy. I feel a little bit better about Ezra Cleveland maybe staying healthy than Brandon Sheriff, just because Brandon Sheriff hasn't really showed throughout his whole career that he really stays healthy. And it's unfortunate with him because it feels like he always gets injured in September. Then the rest of the year, he's kind of hobbling around. So let's just hope for a clean bill of health for Brandon Sheriff. So we'll just have to see that one. But, you know, that's definitely a guy that we should look at drafting interior line, maybe not on day 1 or even day 2 of the draft, but, you know, find some guys early day 3 that can kind of help develop behind Brandon Sheriff, because that's the big thing is, like, Brandon Sheriff really should not be on the team right now. You know, it would have been more ideal that you would have drafted a guy to really be able to learn from him, and then now he's able to replace Brandon Sheriff, but it's not really the situation, and we got to kind of keep paying him. So that's what you do on the offensive line. And my favorite move was signing defensive tackle Eric Armstead to a 3-year, $43 million deal. That was an awesome one, man. You get a top 10 player at their position. And look, he's 31 years old, and he reminds you a lot of, when you just see his level of play on the field, and also just the way he kind of spoke when it comes to the Jaguars in his press conferences. It just gives you major Calais Campbell vibes. So with him, I mean, he's a disruptor. He got hurt. He was kind of hurt a little bit the last couple of years, but before that, he was actually a pretty healthy player. So, we just got to hope that, we stay on the 2022 Jaguars health instead of 2023 Jaguars health. So Eric Armstead, he is a game changer. He fits an immediate need at the defensive tackle spot. And, he's actually a guy that Trent Baalke drafted too. So that's really cool. Really, really excited to bring in Eric Armstead, and he makes our defensive line instantly better. And if you had a guy like Eric Armstead on the team last year, we'd probably make the playoffs. Let's be real. So that's a big thing there. Now, another takeaway is that it seems like things definitely went sideways at wide receiver. Now, I think the Jaguars really thought they were going to be able to re-sign Calvin Ridley, and they go out there and they give Gabe Davis a 3-year, $39 million deal, which I'm a fan of, but I'm not necessarily a fan of Gabe Davis being our premier number one wide receiver, and also he's not getting paid like one. But I don't think the Jaguars envisioned Calvin Ridley getting $23 million a year, which good for him. Go out there and get your money. You can't really fault any player that takes a huge contract, and if the Jaguars are offering you $17 million a year and whoever the heck team is offering you $23 million a year, we're all jumping over to that team. Okay, that's just kind of how it is. So you can't really blame him, but you can kind of blame the situation. I mean, it would have been ideal to have extended Josh Allen. Calvin Ridley played on I think it was like a $21 million franchise tag, and then it gives you a little bit of leeway when it comes to what we do at wide receiver this year. But right now we're rocking with Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Gabe Davis, and it doesn't feel like you're good enough at the wide receiver position right now. So I think the Jaguars definitely make a move at wide receiver. I know a lot of people right now, and we're, some early draft talk here, a lot of people, on Twitter and stuff are like, oh, cornerback number 17. I feel like most people are saying cornerback. For me, I'm like, why? I mean, I understand why, but it's like, if you were to tell me, hey, you're either going to get a really, really good cornerback or a really, really good wide receiver, I'm going to take the wide receiver. I want this offense to be high flying. I want Trevor Lawrence to have a really, really good wide receiver target. I guess I want offensive greatness instead of, as opposed to defensive. I don't know. I don't know really what to say when it comes to that. I mean, I know just me. I'd rather wide receiver. Give me like a Brian Thomas Jr. or maybe the Jaguars make a big move to trade up and, try to, maybe if a Roma Dunze falls a little bit, maybe they're able to get in a position where they're able to like jump to pick number 10 and draft a guy like that. I don't know, man. Maybe I am just, maybe I'm just a fanboy who likes offensive scoring, but that's just me. Give me a really, really good top tier wide receiver. So I think the Jaguars actually do finally go wide receiver in the first round. That's just what my early gut tells me. And I've been pretty good in 2023 when it comes to free agent predictions. I was honestly pretty, I don't really toot my own horn that much, but I was pretty on point about a lot of what I thought the Jaguars were going to do, and it kind of turned out to be true. So I'm hoping it rings true throughout the draft, and we go out and get a wide receiver in round one, whether it be at pick number 17 or if they trade up. So we'll just have to see. So another thing is that I think all three of the Jaguars starting cornerbacks are on the roster right now. I think signing Ronald Darby to a 2-year, $8.5 million deal is a pretty underrated move. He was actually pretty good for the Baltimore Ravens last year, and he has a lot of experience. Of course, he's a little bit older, and he may not be the most spry player, but he locks down that position. He's a really good man coverage cornerback. So, and we've all known of the name Ronald Darby for forever. So I think he's a good player there. Tyson Campbell, I still think he's a good cornerback. I don't think, we saw him play really good cornerback, and then he got hurt, and then all of a sudden he was terrible. I don't think he forgot how to play cornerback. And I think Antonio Johnson with bringing in Darnell Savage at safety, I think you have your starting nickel cornerback in Antonio Johnson. So that's just my opinion. We'll just have to see. But yeah, I think the Jaguars don't have to go super aggressive at cornerback. Just me personally. So with this, I thought another thing that was kind of interesting is just you're kind of seeing the NFL shift a little bit. And that's like the years on these different contracts that are given out. Look, in 2017, when the Jaguars made a bunch of big splashes 7 years ago. Yes, do the math. 2017 was 7 years ago. Calais Campbell signed a 4-year deal. AJ Boye signed a 5-year deal. Barry Church signed a 4-year deal. This year in 2024, Eric Armstead signs a 3-year deal. Gabe Davis signs a 3-year deal. And Mitch Morse signed a 2-year deal. So you're kind of seeing, I think, like more guaranteed money and shorter contracts. So I think that's something to kind of look forward to for future seasons. And, with all this, look, I think going forward, I think you got to focus on trying to find a way to extend Josh Allen. And I do think that it gets done. This is kind of what he does with Trent Baalke. I mean, in 2022, you franchise tag Cam Robinson, and you wound up signing him right before the draft in April. In 2023, you did the same thing with Evan Ingram. You franchise tagged him, then you signed him to a new deal in July. I think we're going to see the same thing out of Josh Allen, and I think Josh Allen is a much easier contract to get done because he's a really good player at a premier position, so you can't really skimp out on a deal like him. And I do think that ultimately it does get done one way or another. Now, overall, I do think that Trent Baalke did a good job. Like a lot of people say, oh, like, how can you talk crap about Trent Baalke in this video, but all of a sudden talk good about him in this one? Look, I'm not the kind of person that is so prideful where I have to always have one stance on somebody. I can give you props when you do good and tear you down when you do bad. Quite frankly, I wish that Trent Baalke, I hope he makes this big turnaround and becomes the best GM in the NFL, okay? Because me personally, I care way too much about the Jaguars, and my happiness level depends way too much on whether the Jaguars win or lose. I remember being in Tampa Bay on Christmas Eve, and I watched the Jaguars get destroyed, and my wife saw me all upset, and she said to me, "You're not allowed to be mad because it's Christmas Eve." And I'm like, jingle bell, you know what I mean? It's just, it affects me too much. Even the Jaguars can ruin Christmas, okay? So I hope that Trent Baalke becomes the best GM in the NFL. And with that said, he absolutely needs to hit on the draft. Look, last couple years, he hits on the first pick, kind of, I guess, and then on day 2, just completely fumbles the bag, okay? He's got to be able to nail his draft picks because you can't just have bad drafts every year and become better, okay? Having kind of 2 so-and-so drafts in a row kind of put us in a point where we kind of moved backwards, and then we're having to go out and spend a bunch of money in free agency, okay? Championship teams are not built through free agency. Championship teams are built through the draft. And right now, if you look at the players on a team, most of them are, quite frankly, free agent signings, okay? It's time to draft some young guys and do work that way. So we'll just have to see. Let me know your thoughts of free agency. I really enjoyed it. I'm just really ready to start looking at a draft and seeing what we do there. So with all that said, thank you guys for watching. Huge shout out to BetUS, man. 125% deposit bonus in your first 3 deposits, 24-hour payouts, and quick 24/7 customer service. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like for me on your way out, and go Jags.